All right, hello, children. It's Pastor Matthew here for Children's Praise. We are here looking through our catechism, and we're making some good headway on all 107 questions. By the time you finish through Children's Praise, you will have went through every one of these questions, and that's going to be a pretty amazing thing to say and to know as you learn them each time and remember them as you get older. Here is our question number 27. This is going to be building on our previous questions. And I know by now you're getting the idea that these questions are all related to each other. They build on each other, kind of like bricks when you play with bricks or Legos. So we've been learning about Jesus being here's my three fingers, right? A prophet, a priest, and a king. Remember these three. Can you put your three fingers up and say that? Prophet, priest, and king. So that's Jesus' three offices. Sometimes we talk about it that way. But just remember, Jesus has three roles. He's a prophet, priest, and a king. Now, what we're going to learn is about Jesus' humiliation. That means, the simple way to see that is that Jesus lowered himself. Everybody take your hand and say he lowered himself. He went low. That's what humility means. It means to go low. Here's the question. How was Jesus humiliated? That is, how did Jesus come low? How did he make himself go low? It says this: Jesus was humiliated by being born as a man and born into a poor family, by being made subject to the law and suffering and miseries of this life, the anger of God and the curse of death on the cross, and being buried and remaining under the power of death for a time. Now, I know you're seeing that answer on the screen, and I know what you're thinking is, that's a really long answer. And so what we're going to do is look at that answer just in a few pieces and make it make sense. So first we have to remember that Jesus, as we've already learned, is a king. And so kings wear, what do I have here? A crown. So for Jesus to humble himself, he had to take this crown, which was on his head, and he set it aside like this. And then he humbled himself and came into our world. Right? So how did he do that? Well, the picture you're seeing is him being born in a manger. That is what we just read, one part of Jesus' humiliation, or the way Jesus made himself low. He first, we're told, he was born in a manger. Our catechism question says he was born into a poor family with Mary and Joseph. But not only that, here we also know that Jesus suffered. He had to live a life like you and me in this world. Have you ever cried because you had pain in your body, or because you felt sorry or emotionally sad? You ever feel sad where you cried? Well, so did Jesus. Jesus knows what that feels like. Think of this picture here where this man hurt his leg. Did you ever bump your toe or bump your foot into something or step on something sharp and you really, really hurt yourself and you felt the pain rush up your leg? Well, Jesus knows what that feels like because he lowered himself to be like us and to live in a world to actually suffer. But his biggest suffering was actually dying. He died on a cross. And that's where our question says that he died under the wrath of God. He died cursed in death. And so you have this image of Jesus dying on a cross. That was also part of his life where he lowered himself, even lowering himself to death. And then not just that, Jesus actually died. And the question answers by saying he was under the power of death for a time. And so that's this image of a grave to symbolize what Jesus actually went through, which was really being under the power of death. And that's what we mean by Jesus lowered himself. He laid aside his crown. He came lower down to being born, lower to a life full of suffering, lower to experiencing death, and even lower to being under the power of death. So now you know what it means that Jesus lowered himself. Or humiliated himself. But maybe it's better just to remember that he lowered himself. So here is the Bible verse that talks about this. Philippians 2, verse 5 says this, "Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God as a thing to be grasped, but he emptied himself," or maybe we could say he lowered himself, "by taking the form of a servant, and being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross." So that's our Bible verse today, Philippians 2, 5, 6, and 7. And I want you to learn what that is and listen to your teachers. And next week, we're going to learn what happens after Jesus lowered himself.